Addictions of all kinds lead to problems with your relationships, career, and yes, also your money. Beau Humphreys is a blogger at Invest Wisely and the host of the Personal Finance Show. Beau leads us through the story of his gambling addiction and how it affected his finances, plus how he was able to overcome his problems and how others can get help with addiction. Welcome to the MapleMoney Show, the podcast that helps Canadians improve their personal finances to create lasting financial freedom. Did you know, on average, Canadians have over $24,000 in high-interest credit card debt? That's why our sponsor Borrowell offers low-interest personal loans online, up to $35,000. Thousands of Canadians have relied on Borrowell for their personal loans. The average Borrowell borrower saves $4,812 in interest. To see what you could qualify for, head over to MapleMoney.com/Borrowell. That's MapleMoney.com/BORROWELL. Now let's chat with Beau. Hi, Beau. Welcome to the Maple Money Show.
Hey, Tom. Good to be here.
So thanks for being on the show. I really wanted to have you on because you've got a unique story that I've never really heard from anyone else in the personal finance space. So basically, just to hop right into it, is you were addicted to gambling. Can you kind of go into all the way back to the beginning? How did that first happen?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to when I was 11. That's why I say I had a 20-year gambling addiction from 11 to 31. And so 1991 to 2011, right?
Okay.
And I say that because, well, my first incident was where I had saved some money. I was 11. I wanted to buy a Super Nintendo, and only from the States. So, but I calculated what the exchange and the shipping would be, but I still needed my parents to do the order for me because I'm 11, right?
Yeah.
But they weren't really into me spending that much money on one thing, especially through mail order. They just weren't into it at the time. And I just got upset because I'd planned this whole thing. And I went to the mall with my friends and just started blowing that money on lottery tickets. And I was able to get the lottery tickets because they were still pretty lax. Like I could say, I'm getting it from my mom or something like that, right? And the retailers would be like, yeah, whatever, right? They cracked down on it a little later, but at that point, it was still easy to buy them. So I ended up over a period of a week spending that whole 300, a couple of little wins in there. I just basically got the taste. And then throughout high school, I was just, on the side, just doing whatever I could, poker games, buying more lottery tickets. I had it was in my head. I just it drove everything that I did, and I didn't even really realize it.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah, I know what you mean with the scratch tickets. I remember having them, and I don't think I don't know if I was buying them for me or if I legitimately was buying them for my parents, but I certainly remember buying them.
You were able to buy them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
you're in a different province too, right?
I was probably in Alberta, possibly in the Northwest Territories. I can't remember.
So you would have had even different laws and younger ages than I did, maybe. Right?
Yeah. So this Ontario. Is all while you're still underage.
Yeah. So I'm building it up. It's like bubbling, right?
Yeah.
And so by the time I turn 18 and I can get a credit card, online casinos are exploding. This is like 99, 2000, like between 98 and 2000, they all kind of just like thousands of casinos were just exploding on the internet. That was like I hate to say perfect time, but it was the perfect time for me to just my addiction to just take off. Wow. It sounds like I'm saying it was like a career or something, but it did. That's kind of how it felt. Like it was like, if there wouldn't have been online casinos, I don't even know if it would have happened in this way, right?
A little too convenient compared to
that's it. Yeah. So I go to university, I get this emergency credit card from my parents, and I went to town. I just lost it because I was uncomfortable. University, new experience. I still didn't know why I was gambling, right? There was no introspection yet. There was no exploration to figure out, why am I doing this? Why do I feel this compulsion to just spend this money and possibly win? And I think I probably thought at the time, well, I'm good at this, right? I can I can do it. I can win money if I just keep going.
Yeah.
And I maxed out that credit card. So that's when my parents kind of stepped in and figured out, and I started therapy. But then it was a long, 10 years after that of trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see how this could become addicting if you did have a few small wins where you see like, oh, I'm up
Yeah.
$1,000 or something like that,
That's
then
it. Right.
you want to just keep doing that. I never had this problem because every attempt I've ever had at gambling has been an absolute fail.
Yeah.
Um,
You're one
so
of the lucky ones.
yeah, exactly. It's made it so boring for me. Me and my wife, we went to Vegas. We put $20 in a machine, lost it. Okay, well, let's not do that
Yeah,
anymore
it's
because
just fun, right? Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, say you're lucky, by being unlucky, you're
yes,
lucky for the rest of your life, right?
yeah, for sure. Like I can't even understand how people get so excited when a lotto is
Yeah,
in
like
large amounts and everyone needs to go
yeah.
buy a ticket. And I'm like, well, your odds are like so terrible. But
Well,
so I get
just to speak to that, I'm fine with people who gamble responsibly. If you have
hmm,
extra money and you want to go have some fun, fine, do that. I'm not like, gambling is the devil. It was for me.
yeah,
Uh, I was not meant to do that. But the argument they would have is, somebody's going to win, right? And maybe it'll be me, right? But also maybe you'll get struck by lightning too, right? So
yeah. Well, I guess I am guilty of 50-50 tickets at hockey games and football games. With that same theory that you just said, like I will literally buy one. Not I don't
yeah,
need like give me
you're not buying
20
all of
or
them, yeah.
$10. Like if I at least have one in the game, it's just as exciting for me as if I spent $100 on it. So
Well, and in that case, even though the odds aren't very different, it does seem
yeah,
like they are because there's only what 10, 15, 20,000 people and
yeah,
you can see all of them, right? So it's like, well, I can see everybody, so it's a very small, but the odds are still the same,
yeah.
right?
I still have the same win-loss record. It's
Exactly.
I've never had a real win on anything gambling. So that's made it easy for me. But I totally understand the idea that yeah, especially at a young age, if you started winning at all, even if net you were under in the hole, I could see how that would kind of keep biting at you to kind of well similar to how some people think about investing. Can't you kind of get into this idea of
Yeah.
sort of chasing losses? Like it's like,
Yep.
well, I'm
Absolutely.
down, but I'm gonna correct that.
Oh, I've sat in gambling therapy groups with people of various ages, and some they are still chasing their losses, and
Yeah.
the only reason they're not destitute at this point is because they have accepted getting an allowance from their spouse,
Okay.
and so they have the money. They have a really strict money control, and when I heard them talk about that, I'm like, I don't ever want to live that way. I really like. There's got to be another way to figure this out rather than just have somebody give me the amount of money I need for the day,
Hmm.
and that's all that I have. It's like, what? That's not a way to live, in my opinion. You got to work on the problem that is causing you to behave this way, right? It became less about winning for me and more that this was my comfort zone. This was my coping mechanism for whatever uncomfortability I was having with life. And that's, where I started to sort of work with counselors to figure out what that was exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like your way is closer to truly being cured than that. But you're
Yeah.
right. If someone needs that though, it's certainly better than making things worse.
It's a good stopgap measure for sure. It's
Yeah,
it's good in the interim.
yeah, but it's not truly fixing anything.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned getting help. Can you go into that a bit?
Yeah. So, the good thing, and I guess I can only speak about Ontario, but I think all the provinces are similar in this. There's the Canadian Association of Mental Health, and they have a problem gambling program. And I mean, we didn't know immediately that was available because this was early 2000s when I had the first real relapse in the thousands of dollars,
Hmm.
and my parents just wanted me to get therapy. And so I did, and if they just thought maybe I was depressed or anxious or something, so they would prescribe me something. And this was just general counseling,
Yeah.
but when it started to become a little more recurring, like I would have another relapse, and I didn't know why, or I would just be sneaking around. we figured out that there was a problem gambling service at CAMH, CAMH in Toronto.
Yeah.
And so I started going to a counselor there. And so I worked with him for about 10 years
Oh, okay.
to figure out what, from probably 21 to 31 or 20 to 30 to figure out what was going on.
Is
And
this free counseling?
yeah, so it is. If you have an addiction, you can get free counseling, as opposed to if you're just exploring, say um, you're depressed or other things like that, you have to unfortunately go and pay for a counselor. But I think addiction gets a lot of funding because it can be life ruining. Not that depression cannot be, but it's more of a, I hate to say mainstream, but it is. And, it's, it doesn't need as intense a therapy, I guess, and maybe can be solved quicker for some people.
Mm.
But it's a really good point. I mean, if somebody needs counseling for anything, especially if they're having trouble with their life, I feel like that should be covered as well. I feel lucky that mine was.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, but I almost wonder if it's funded by the different provincial lottos, because I think I've seen
They
it at
do
the
get
bottom of
money.
tickets, like if you have a gambling addiction, call this number or something like that.
Yeah, there are different things. Different. There's a lot of organizations for this. I just happen to end up at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, which is good because when we eventually worked on it and figured out what was wrong with me, I just walked down the hallway and got a prescription, or got the psychiatrist to check me out. So it took a while, but we stumbled on that maybe I have attention deficit disorder.
Okay.
And what it manifests in different ways for different people. For me, it was just I was just afraid of everything. I couldn't get things started. I couldn't get things finished. I couldn't focus. That's obviously one of the main things, but just fear of new things and new experiences, because you just don't know how to handle it. You don't have these mechanisms that everybody has built in, and you weren't able to build them up either from when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So when I kind of like, I think I have this, I took a little test on my own, and then they sent me down the hall to the psychiatrist at CAMH, and she gave me the real test, and um, she said, "Yeah, here's like, let's start you off on a medication," and it changed my life. It was
Good.
like night and day. I was able to, like, because I really just hated my life. I didn't know how to express that to everybody. I didn't know why. I just felt like everything was wrong. You have this
Mm.
potential maybe that you could live up to, but you can never get there. It's like you're always reaching for the thing that is you, but you're missing the thing you need to get there. And it was like a break in my brain, right?
Mm.
And the medication kind of connected that break. And then that plus cognitive behavioral therapy and some mindfulness, stuff like that, it all kind of started turning me around. Yeah.
Good to hear. So you mentioned how credit cards sort of started to really make this a problem.
Oh man.
Um, can you go back into that a bit more? Sort of uh, how the debt piled up, maybe what the
Yeah.
total was, and how you got out of that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, before we even figured out the ADD thing, I got myself into heaps of credit card debt. I think I had 8 credit cards at the same time at one point.
Wow.
And the reason I probably had 8 at the time is because a couple of them would have awesome balance transfer things that I could use to avoid facing this crazy $600 to $800 a month payment that I would have had to make, like minimum payments. We're
Yeah.
talking at the time, and I think it was a 2.1% minimum payment back then. I think it's different now, but I had all credit card debt. It wasn't like I just had like a cheap line of credit and this or that. And I had some promotional rates, but then at a certain point they were all expiring. So
Mhm.
at one point I'm just sort of racking up one, chasing losses. I'm definitely started doing that. But it's just something I just needed to keep doing it to cope, because I didn't know what was wrong with me yet. Right. And so I'm just trying to find the money, and it just, I even got an inheritance, which is, this is probably the worst thing. I got an inheritance from my grandparents. And the best thing that I did was take half of it and put it on my line of credit from school to pay that down. Couldn't access that anymore
Yeah.
because the rest of it I just blew like I did everything else. And
Yeah.
so imagine you have these great earning years and this great compounding time. And not only are you not investing that money, but you're wasting it and then
Mm.
wasting more money. So I had negative compounding years in my 20s. So I just started catching up in early 30s. And, the only good thing is I was still able to sort of build a career in the daytime. It was like by day, I'm trying to be successful, but the only way to do that was the offset of the coping with gambling. So I'm trying to do a normal life, like build this normal, what I would consider to be a normal career in finance and businesses, and then I'm wasting all my money on the side. But salary increased and I was able to get there. But yeah, so by 2005, I was about 40,000 in debt, and there was a day where I won 20,000 and lost it in the same day. I was like, oh, my problems are solved, and then immediately they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it was crazy.
So to deal with this debt, did you end up paying it off, or did you go bankrupt? And was this sort of before or after dealing with the addiction?
Yeah, so still, I mean, the winning 20,000 in a day and losing it immediately. That's what made me realize that whatever part of my brain was still thinking that I could gamble my way out of this,
Yeah.
that disappeared that day, right? It was like, okay, I'm never going to get out of this by gambling. Like I just won the jackpot that I always was thinking about, and immediately I just upped my bets and lost it all.
Gee.
So that kind of cemented in that it's the insanity thing, right? You can't keep doing the same thing and expect to change,
Yeah.
right? Like I was just gambling more to try to stop gambling. It didn't make any sense. Um, so at that point, I just started to. I guess I kind of coasted a little bit because somebody was watching my money for a couple of years, and then I figured out the medication, and that kind of flipped my brain a little bit too. And I'm like, okay, I can't. I was making 40,000 maybe at that time, and I had 40,000 in debt. So like
Yeah.
at that point, you're never going to be able to pay that off organically, right? It's never going to go away, and it's going to keep building interest. So I looked into what are my options for this, and I discovered I discovered bankruptcy, and on the same site that I was reading of bankruptcy, I was like, well, they said if bankruptcy is too much, here's an alternative. It's a consumer proposal. And you basically propose to your creditors a smaller amount than what they're going to get now, but bigger than zero, which
Yeah.
they would get in a bankruptcy.
Exactly.
So you have to go to an insolvency trustee uh, to do this. They have to put together a package. Like it's all very court documents and legal. It's a government, program, and the trustees are licensed to work on your behalf. Not all of them do this, so be careful. Some of them charge you up front, and some of them do some shady things. So just go to a trusted a trustee if you're thinking of looking into this. And they put together a package, took my 40,000 down to 15.
Okay.
The interest is gone. They actually they take on the responsibility of the debt and pay the creditors slowly over the period of payback. So I had $300 a month flat over the next 50 months. So $15,000 total, right?
Yeah.
300 times 50. And when that 50 months is done, then my proposal is cleared. All of my creditors are paid off. The trustee takes their fees out of the amounts that are part of that 15 that go to the creditors. So the creditors actually get less than 15, which is, I don't know why I like that. I don't know. Because I just feel, just to talk about that for a sec, I had a $19,000 limit on a visa,
Yeah.
and I was making 40,000 a year. That should not ever be possible. And I know that it's not their responsibility, but there should be some kind of sanctions in place to make sure that you can't get a limit that's over a certain percentage of your income. Because if you max that out, you're basically asking for bankruptcy,
Yeah.
and it's enabling problems, right? So
Were
I
you
started the proposal. Yeah.
were you missing payments before that, or were you
Oh yeah.
keeping up with it? Okay.
Well, I was missing them. I actually, that's a good question because I look back at some of my statements, just as I'm writing about stuff, just to check. I kept a couple of the last statements for some of my credit cards, and yeah, I let them accumulate, but I think that might have been on the advice of the trustees at the time. Like just stop paying while we work through this proposal.
Yeah.
But I probably missed a couple. I didn't have the money. I was probably borrowing from one or another because I didn't have the cash flow to do this. I was just digging further into debt. So I probably advanced money from one credit card to pay another, which of
Mm.
course is terrible. And I just try to keep these balance transfers, 0% balance transfers going as long as I could so that I wouldn't have to be paying that much. But yeah, I would have missed a payment or two, especially at the end. But then at that point, we're going to write it all off anyway. So um, it doesn't matter, and they're supposed to stop calling once the proposal goes through,
Yeah.
and they did, but you have to follow up with them too to make sure it happens.
Yeah, and really, the consumer proposal is a good deal for the bank. Like you said, it's better than getting nothing, but
Yeah,
also this is built in. Like when they have a certain interest rate, that they expect some losses. They expect someone
they
to
do.
disappear completely and pay for collections, and they'll charge collection
That's
companies
right.
like pennies on the dollar to buy that. They'll buy that debt from them. So it's
It's
it's all
built
sort
into
of
the system. So like if you're ever thinking, oh man, they're either going to hate me for this, well, though they're a big company. They, like you said, it's all built in. The
yeah,
system is here for a reason. It, take advantage of it rather than just going to live in the gutter, or something even worse you might decide to do to yourself, or payday loans. Oh
yeah.
man, oh, it can get so bad. Like I'm just glad I never went there.
Okay, I was just gonna ask you,
Lucky.
yeah,
I was
if that
lucky.
was next, yeah,
And just to touch on this for a second, like a lot of people will contemplate suicide
Mhm.
in this situation, and I feel lucky that I didn't go there either. I never had that thought. I was like, obviously, I was really, really in a bad place, and I was so upset with myself. But I never went there, so I feel lucky because who knows where I would have been, right? I just thought I was going to go have to live in my parents' basement or something,
Yeah, and
right?
and, and
Never have
speaking
a
of
life, right?
speaking of things going as bad as suicide, like it's important to state again that the counseling's free. The consumer proposal is an option when it comes to the debt. So both of these things are relatively easy to do. There's not a lot of roadblocks to either of them. So people should certainly seek that help and turn these problems around
But the stigma is there. Then it's the main
for
thing
sure.
for people to get over, right? Your credit rating does get ruined when you go through a
Yeah,
proposal or bankruptcy. It's pretty much the same one. It's R7 or R9. It
yeah,
means inability to pay debts as they become due, and for some people that is like a death sentence in itself. I don't know why, but I think it's just all in your head. Like, what's worse, right? Having to pay this debt for the rest of your life and never pay it off and never be able to enjoy your life or save money, or go through a proposal or bankruptcy, even if that's the better option for you.
yeah. And
I
that's
think,
that's only a stigma if people know about it too. Like, sure, it's on your credit report, but that's not something that you have to wear around your neck. You can you can
true.
not obviously you've been open with your finances, but not everybody has to be. They can fix
Oh,
their problem and move on.
and later, I was open later,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
not
fair
at
enough.
the
Yeah,
time. Yeah, right. I was terrified in one way to have to do something that required credit checks, or even landlords would do that, right? So I kind of made sure that I was settled into one place for at least a couple of years, and I couldn't. I got a secured credit card later, but it's like you can't do a lot of things. I lived on cash for a couple of years,
yeah,
and that's a experience in itself.
yeah. So, how long did this wreck your credit report? Is it 6 or 7 years?
So the 50 months, so just over 4 years to pay off the proposal,
Yeah.
and then it's 3 years after the proposal is paid.
Okay.
So I paid off everything in August 2012, and then in August 2015, um, everything, well, with my help, everything was expunged from my credit report. Now the credit reporting agencies don't work for you, so you have to tell them what they're supposed to do sometimes, unfortunately. It's like, as an example, they took the proposal off of my credit report, but they had left one of the credit cards that was associated, which
Yeah.
basically said written off due to proposal, right? So you can't take leave the evidence there and take the one thing off. And so eventually it took like a month or so, but I got them to clear everything off. And then all the creditors see at that point, I mean, I did get credit card offers right away, and I took them because you want to rebuild your credit with available credit, and because I was stable at that point for a long time. If I thought there was any risk, I would have obviously still stayed away, and I think anybody should do that too. But if you, you can have credit cards if you don't have any risk of, fattening the balances up, because it looks good to have a lot of available credit, in terms of building a credit score back.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of checking a credit score. One of our sponsors is Borrowell, and this isn't a paid plug. I'm just
No.
I'm just saying that I review mine all the time, because I had found, I think I still have it, when I used to get credit reports in the mail, that there was something on there that was not mine at all.
Yeah.
So it's certainly good to review the situation.
And I wish I had, the Borrowell or, Credit Karma or, I don't want to mention the other one, but there's a couple of different ways to get your credit score for free.
Yeah.
I couldn't get that. I didn't know my score was. I could get my report, but the report doesn't necessarily show any progress. The score is like a consolidated, way to see, okay, am I improving or not, right?
Yes.
Or do they think that I'm improving, and this is what they're reporting to the bank? So it is nice to see, like, I'll tell you, my credit score is 836 right now.
Good,
and it was probably 500 or something right at the time. And so to be able to rebuild to get there, and to be able to, during the proposal, have that ability to put some of that money away, like, the proposal is crafted in a way which is great, that it gives you a bit of a buffer, because that's what life is, right? Like they wouldn't make it like so strict for you, right? Like the $300 a month is going to come out, and then they put all the other things in the budget, and then they put a tiny bit of savings in the budget too, to determine that the $300 was the valid amount for me monthly. So that was great.
Nothing that's such a problem that you still have financial issues then.
Yeah, you're going to get back into debt, right? What would be the point? And then if you keep focusing on the rest of your life and try to increase your income, which I was doing, just progressively, then your debt is fixed, your payments are fixed, but now you're making more money. So it just kind of goes from there. And really what it gave me was this relief temporarily from having to deal with this terrible debt. Then I could focus on my gambling issues and why. Yeah. And then that gave me the freedom to sort of work my way out without also having this heavy burden.
This has been very inspirational. I hope if anyone has a gambling issue, they hear this episode, and if someone knows anyone, that they pass this on. Can you tell people where they can find you and what you've been up to?
Yeah, so the best way to find out about all my things is just beauhumphreys.com. So that's like my hub. My personal finance blog is investwisely.ca, and my podcast is The Personal Finance Show, which is thepersonalfinanceshow.com. But it's all on beauhumphreys.com. If you just go there, you can check out the other things I'm working on too.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks to Beau for being so open about his past to help others in similar situations. You can find the show notes for this episode at MapleMoney.com/Beau Humphreys, or catch all the episodes at MapleMoney.com/show. If someone you know needs help with their addiction, please share this episode with them and find them help in their province. Thanks as always for spending time with me here. I look forward to seeing you back next week.